Welcome, my name is Michele and I'm an independent demonstrator with Stampin Up. Thank you for joining me today, and today I'm going to recreate a card using the Thoughtful Journey suite. So what we're going to be using from this suite is a little bit, very small piece of the designer series paper. We're going to be using the stamps and the dies, and I'm going to be using, along with this, let me just see if I can find it, the name. Sorry, I have just finished my regular monthly card class and just come from that straight to this. So still a little bit disorganized. I'm going to be using the Distressed Tile 3D embossing folder with this card. Now, what I thought I'd do before we start is show you the cards that we made today in my class. One of them you may have seen before. The other two you will not have. And I'm going to share with you those cards and then show you the card we're going to recreate. Hi, Joan. Thank you for joining. So please jump on, say hello. Let us know where you're from. So this is what I created, or what the girls created in my class today. Now, you have seen this card before. I have made this in a live, though I did it a little bit differently. This is today's version. And unfortunately, I put the glue on the wrong side, so I put the glue here. See, sometimes even the best of us can make mistakes, but that's okay. We can rectify that. But that's one simple card that we made today. Another card that we made today is this particular one here. This is one I got an idea from on Pinterest. Sorry, I can't tell you who made this card. Sorry. And the differences were she had a banner with her sentiment on that. I actually have decided just to stamp directly onto my DSP. Hi, Anita. Thanks for joining. Oh, thank you, Anita. Thanks very much. It's been lovely. I've heard from two of my sons, well, actually three of my sons today. So my fourth one, unfortunately, is at a funeral, so I may not hear from him until later on. And then I've added a piece of one of the dies, which I cut in half, and added that underneath the baker's twine, and also some of the leaves cut in the gold. So they're just where I've taken an idea from somebody else and then just added a few extras to it to make it mine. This one here, which I showed you before, when I cut this die in half, and this is that quite big flourish die, the other half we just tucked underneath here, so we didn't waste our dies. We kept using them. So you can get quite a bit out of the dies as well. And then the card we're going to make today, and the third card we made today in my class, is this one here. So this one here is just using that 3D embellishment folder. I used a happy birthday sentiment from another suite because some of the girls don't necessarily want the sentiments that are actually on here. They wanted a happy birthday, so we've done this one. So this is the card I thought that I'd recreate with you here today. So let's get started with this particular card. So I've got all my pieces. Let me just grab the right envelope here with all my bits and pieces in it. Oops, here it is down here. So I've already done some of the work here. So I've already die cut my floral piece here. That is cut in the Fresh Freesia cardstock, and that is using that die there. So that's what's cut this piece out for me. Then we have this die here, which in the past I've used it as a separate standalone die, but it also can be used in conjunction with this piece here. So what I've done here to make it a little bit of a point of difference, and this is what I was teaching my girls today, that you can cut your dies out using your design series paper. It doesn't have to be just your cardstock. So I've got a piece of scrap piece here of designer series paper, and you can choose whichever side that you want to use. I want to use this side here rather than the pretty peacock side. And then I'm going to decide on what section of this I want to die cut. Now you've got your Lost Lagoon here, and then you've got going more into your old olives, garden greens, and so forth on the outside edge. And you can choose there what section you want to use. Now I'm going to use this piece here, which has got more of your Lost Lagoon in there. So I'm going to die cut that. And then that can be glued directly over the top of the this piece here that's been die cut. And it actually has everything but the flowers. So what we're going to end up with is a beautiful floral piece with the fresh freesia flowers on top, and then with all the green stems. So let me do that piece first, and we're going to glue those together. Now you could put a bit of adhesive sheet underneath that if you wanted to, but I decided not to, and just to use glue, as if with the adhesive sheet sometimes it can be, because the pieces are fine, it can also be a little bit fiddly trying to get them to line up. Hello Lee, thanks for joining. So let me just grab my mats here. As I said, I've just sort of finished a class, everybody's left, and I've just walked into here and started here, so I'm a little bit all over the place. So we're going to pop that piece on there. I'm sorry you can't really see because I'm using my big cut and emboss machine. Let me just turn that over. So as I said, you can decide whether you want a little bit more green, just depending on the scrap that you want to use. You go there. Actually, I might even do that. Put bottom of my stem a little bit more into the green, and then changing into the darker colours of the Lost Lagoon. And we're going to pop that plate on top and just run that through and die cut that. Now I'm not going to put my die cut machine away just yet because we still have some embossing to do. Now this is not a difficult card to do, and you could even dress it up a bit more if you wanted to. But I'm going to keep this relatively simple and easy today. So let me just grab, I take a pick tool and I'm going to poke these pieces out. So this is what's going to give me green leaves and green branches. And it works quite well with using the designer series paper because the cardstock is quite a bit thicker. So I just found that it's quite nice weight to handle to attach onto this piece here. And you could also have cut this piece out of a piece of designer series paper as well if you wanted a sort of a little bit more texture in your flowers. So now I'm just going to get my multi-purpose glue, and I'm just going to, whoops, wrong piece. I want my branch piece, and I'm going to pop a little bit of glue, not too much. You could also use a sponge if you wanted to sponge your glue on, but just need to spread that out and just keep it quite light, a light touch with glue. You don't really need too much on there because we don't want sort of glue oozing out everywhere. I'm sort of more just brushing the glue over the tips. Okay. So once we've done that, I'm going to layer that on top and match up all of those. Now, using also the multi-purpose glue gives me that little bit of time to move things about, which you wouldn't get at all if you used the adhesive sheets. So this is one of the reasons why I tend to like to use my multi-purpose glue. I mean, there's times when both of them are good, but with this, I've got that little bit of movement time to make sure I've got everything lined up on there nicely. So there we go. So there's our piece. Now let me just grab that, and I'm going to grab my piece of cardstock. So you can see that on there. I've now got those lovely green and different colours in green in my branches and my leaves. And then I've got the fresh freesia there in my flowers. Okay. Now, I think there's a second stamp set that Stampin' Up have done a similar sort of thing with their dies as well, which is quite good because it just shows there is more than one way of using these dies, because you could use them both standalone, which I did do. And I first got them. It wasn't until I saw someone else do this and I realised, oh, hang on a second, they are almost identical dies except for the flowers removed off one of them. So really great. Love that. Now, with this card, we have got only a few pieces. So I'm going to pop that to one side. We have got our card front. So we have our card base, which is 10 centimetres in width, 29.9 or half a sheet of A4 cardstock folded in half. I have a mat, which is 10 centimetres by 14.4 centimetres. My card front, which is 9.7 by 14.1. I have a scrap piece here, which I'm going to pop my sentiment on and cut that with another die from the Stylish Dies. And then we have our decorative piece there. So let's get started on working on our card front. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pop that down there. I've also got a piece of baker's twine, and I've just got the I think it's the smoky slate in the baker's twine, the grey one out of our twine pack. So I'm just going to take my card front. I'm going to use the leaf stamp that comes in that stamp set, and I'm going to use Pretty Peacock. And what I'm going to do now, it's up to you whether you want to stamp this image in the middle or to the side. Now, my original card, I stamped it to the side, and I'm just trying to find. So that's my original card, and I've stamped that just a little bit to the side. This is the card I did with the girls today, and I've stamped it more into the middle. So it's really up to you where you want to stamp that from. So I'm going to ink this up. I'm showing them the Wink of Stella, and you can't. My stamp pad has got glitter from the Wink of Stella in it because they had it open, I think. Must have. So I'm going to make sure I've got really good coverage and ink on that. And I'm going to stamp this a little bit to one side because I don't want to have it right in the middle. So I'm going to stamp that there. Sorry, I've been talking all morning and now I'm losing my voice. So there we go. There's our image on there. I'll clean that off later on. We'll remove that for the moment. Then I'm going to grab my blending brush and I'm going to put a little bit of colour on top of this. And I'm going to use the Lost Lagoon for that. So I'm going to just add some Lost Lagoon to my blending brush. Now, when I use my blending brushes, I like to hold the handle with my 3 fingers and then hold the head of my brush with my thumb and my other finger, and that just gives me a bit more control over my brush. Now, generally when you're using your blending brushes, you start from off your page and you work on, but I only want to add colour just on this area here where my image is. So what I'm going to do, I've inked this up, I'm going to take a little bit of ink off, and then I'm going to start from the centre very, very lightly because I don't want a big splodge of ink, which is what can happen. And I'm just going to start working that around. Now, there's just a little bit of colour there. It's not much. I'm going to take a little bit off and then start from the centre and work around. And just add my ink just very lightly and build up my colour until I am happy with it. Now, I can pick up some of that ink that I've wiped off because I'm putting the ink onto my glass mat, and just keep building it up from there. Okay. Sorry about that. That's my phone. I will get back to that in a minute. And I am just going to keep building that up until you've got the density of colour that you want in that area, and just brushing it out lightly to the sides. Okay, so that's all about a colour I want to pop onto that. Next thing that I want to do is run this through my embossing folder. So I've got my embossing folder here, and I'm going to pop that on the inside there because I like a bit of texture on my cards. Close that up, and then let's bring this back in. Now this time I only need platform 1 and platform 4 because I am using a 3D embossing folder, and I always put my fold, so that's my open end there, that's my fold end. The fold always goes in first, so I'm going to pop that on, and then I'm going to pop my plate number 4 on top of that, and then just run that through. Now I'm going to get rid of my plate 4, put it away because I won't need it again. Put my plate 1 to one side for the moment because I will need that again, and just pop that to one side. So then now that has given us a really nice texture on there. Now to add a little bit more depth onto this, what I've done is I'm going to grab my Wicker Stella, and I'm going to get Pretty Peacock, and I'm going to make a well of ink in the lid of my stamp pad by popping my hand, or my palm of my hand, on both sides of my ink pad and giving that a bit of a squeeze and transferring the ink into the centre there. Now I'm going to use this ink and my Wicker Stella and just pick up this. Now I'm just using quite a dry brush at the moment, so I'm going to use my Wicker Stella as my brush. I don't want to have too much glitter in that at the moment. The glitter is there, but I don't want to have it running because all I'm doing is adding a bit of colour and adding a bit of glitter to it. And then we're just going to brush those leaves with that ink. Now I must remember once I've finished this to go back because I'm actually transferring that Wicker Stella into my lid there as well, so I do want to go back and wipe that out with a tissue or something, just so that I don't transfer more of that glitter onto my stamp pad because I may not want to have glitter in my next card. So we're just going to go through and just use our Wicker Stella brush as our paintbrush for this. So it's just another way of using your Wicker Stella. Now just excuse me for one moment. I'm just going to pop my phone onto silent. It was just my husband trying to ring me. He just apologised because he forgot that I had my class on. and was doing a live straight away afterwards. So that's okay. He just wants me to get a piece of cake out of the freezer, so he's got some afternoon tea. Okay, so that's just going to add that little bit extra colour and a little bit extra sparkle. Now, if you wanted to add a bit more sparkle to that, of course, what we can do is give our Wink of Stella a bit of a squeeze. And we've got the one that's almost empty. Okay, let me grab my other Wink of Stella and put the lid on that. I'll clean that nib in a minute. Grab my other one. And we're just going to give that a bit of a squeeze and get a puddle here of Wink of Stella in that ink. We want a nice big puddle. We want it quite fluid. Make sure you've got nothing around you don't want glitter on. And then what we can do is add a few coloured splatters. Now, of course, if you've got one of these glass plates, which you can now purchase from Stampin' Up, you could actually mix all this directly onto your plate. So we're just going to add a few splatters there. Now, there are a few fine splatters. If I want my splatters to be a little bit more heavier, I can actually flick it. I think I need a little bit more liquid in this. I think both of these might be getting that little bit dry to add some more alcohol in these. Let's just give it a bit more of a flicker. And I'm going to have to add a bit more alcohol into that later on, but you can still see a little bit of splattering happening there. Wendy, you're just scrolling past. Oh, thank you very much for the birthday wishes. Oh, it's always great to celebrate with all my friends, even on my lives and all my classes that happened today. It's been lovely. Okay, so I'm just going to get a tissue, clean tissue that I've put aside in my pocket here. And give this a bit of a clean out so we don't transfer all that glitter onto another project. Okay, pop that in my bin. So there is our card front. So what I'm going to do with that right now is I'm going to adhere my card front onto my card mat. Now I will blog about this, and I will do Tuesday's card as well in my blogs, hopefully over the weekend. And I will put all the measurements and everything that I used on there, but these are fairly standard. Sort of when I look at most of my cards, I only use about a few measurements, because I usually use a card base, a mat, and a card front. It's fairly standard sort of layout. It's just the decoration that goes on top that I like to play with. So I'm not putting a card insert in this because I already have a white card that's easy to write on. So there's that piece there. Now here's our die cut piece that we did a little while ago. So we're just going to add a little bit of glue to the back of this. Now again, I don't add glue onto everything. I just want to add a little bit just to hold all that into place. I like to have a little bit of a lift, and then that can go straight over the top. Got my piece of twine here, which I've got around about 25 centimetres. And we're just going to tie ourselves maybe a good sized bow. Whoops, I'm just going to try to get a bit of that twist out of my ribbon, my baker's twine. And tie that again. Oops, I got too big on one side. Isn't it always the way? You need to make it smaller on one side and a little bit bigger on the other so you can move it about. There we go, that's better. And I've got it pretty good. I might have that one there, just that little bit bigger than that. And we're just going to grab our snips and just trim that down a little bit. Then we're going to grab a glue dot, and I'm going to pop a glue dot in the middle of those flowers. And I'm going to pop my ribbon, my bow, a little bit at an angle. I want to pop that glue dot just about there, and I'm going to pop my bow at an angle just like that. I might just trim that down just a little bit more. So there's our bow. Now let's do our sentiment. So our sentiment I'm going to stamp in the Blackberry Bliss just to sort of add another dimension to our card with another colour. And I'm using the sentiment Dearest Friend for this one. I'm going to stamp that right in the middle of my scrap there. And then I'm find my okay, where have I put it? Did I put it away? I'm looking for, no, has to be here somewhere. My stylish shapes, where are they? There they are. And out of there, I want one of those banner pieces, that one there. And I'm going to use, if I can find what I'm looking for, this will do me. Just one of these little Post-it note pieces just to hold that in place. Let's bring in our cut and emboss machine again. This time we need plates 1 and 2. And there's 1, 2, our Perspex 3. Well, I think it's almost time for me to get new plates. Pop our sentiment on there and grab our one on top and run that through. Pop that out. And we just need a couple of dimensionals. And we're going to pop one on either side. I'm not putting one in the middle for this particular card because it's got to go over the knot in the bow. So here's our card again. And I'm going to pop that straight over the top of that bow. Down like that. So quite a simple little card to make. Now I'm just having a quick look here. Whoops. We've made that one fairly quickly. Now I do have another card all cut out and ready to go. And maybe you might like to see me make this one. So this is this card here. Okay. So I had one person who couldn't come to the class, so I thought, oh, use her cards to recreate these cards for you. So with this card here, I've got this piece here that pops up. So what I've got here, I've got my card base, which is my standard size card base, which is 10 by 10.5 by 29.9. I have a card mat, which is 10 by 14.4. I've also got a piece to go on the inside of my card, which is my card insert, which is also 10 by 14.4. I have a piece of designer series paper, which is 9.7 by 14.1. And when I cut this, I have this strip here left over on the side, and this piece here I've cut it at 3 centimeters by 14.4. So this one here is slightly not as long. So this one here, the depth of it is 14.1. This one, the depth of it is 14.4, because this piece here is the piece that we're going to pop onto our card insert. So let me do that now while we've got it, because I couldn't waste this paper. This had a strip left over of around about, probably just over 5 centimeters, 5.5 centimeters. I thought, I can't waste all that. I've got to use it. So that's why I've cut this piece, and I've cut it quite wide at 3 centimeters. So that can go onto there. And that's going to be the piece that's going to go on the inside of our card. So let's pop that right now on the inside. Then we know that that's all done. Gee, lately you've been getting 2 cards out of me. Wow. I think I must be on a roll at the moment. And that can go right in there. Since I've got all this pre-cut, I'm ready to go. Why not? So there is our card base done. Let me just get rid of those little pieces there. Now, I also have another piece of cardstock there. This is in the Lost Lagoon. And this piece measures 4.7 by 8.2. Okay. Now, what that is just a little bit bigger than, let's grab this piece out. This is from the deckled rectangle dies. So this is just a little bit bigger than the inside measurement. It's probably around about the same size actually as, yep, it is. It's the same size as the outer size measurement of this particular die. I did use the bigger size die to cut this out originally, but it was quite a bit bigger and I just really didn't like it. I like to have a nice little fine edge. So I'm cut this piece the same size to the, about the same size as the outer edge of this die, but I'm going to cut my designer series paper and the cutting line is on the inner edge. So that's the difference in the 2 sizes. Hope I haven't confused you there. So I'm going to work out on here. Now you could work out what section of this paper you want to cut out. Now, if you don't want to do rectangle, you can do a circle. But if you're going to do a circle, then you would have issues with how you're going to put the baker's twine on. I don't want to take this die piece too close to my edge, just for the fact that when this lays over the top, it's going to be, I'm cutting out that inner edge, but you're going to have this piece here underneath it. So I don't want it going too far this way. But because we're cutting the inner, and I've actually cut this cardstock the same size as the outer edge, this will give you a bit of a general idea where you're going to cut, what you want to have with inside that circle. hope you understand that. It's just, yeah, it was something that I didn't realise until I was working out today that, yeah, that piece is the same size as this. Anyway, work out where you want to cut this. As I said, if you want to use a circle, you could use a circle. I particularly like the rectangle. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut out a window. So let me just move all this out of my road. I'm going to bring in my cut and emboss machine again. Let me just take that out of the road. Bring in my plates again, my 1 and 2 and my 2 3s. Pop that in. Now I've used a bit of tape there just to hold that die in place where I want it, and we're going to run that through machine like that. Now I think I don't need that anymore because I've die cut everything else out. So we'll pop all this away. And remove this. So what we're doing is we're cutting a window out of our designer series paper like that. So now we have these two. We have our mat, which we're going to adhere this piece onto. We have this piece here, which, as I said, was the same size of the outer edge of that die. And when we glue that on, that's just going to give us a nice little fine edge around the outside of that die, which we're going to eventually pop up on dimensionals. So it's making that a focal point. So let's adhere all this together. So I hope now that that makes all sense to you. So just putting a little bit of glue on there, just around those edges, and lining this up. And then we can do the same to this piece. Try not to make the glue too gluggy under here because we do still yet have to stamp on this. We're going to stamp our sentiment onto this piece here. So there we go. So we just want to leave that little bit of an edge, and that will eventually go over the top of that, just like that. So we're just highlighting that a little bit. So I'm going to grab my Blackberry Bliss, and I need to get, now the sentiment I used before was thanks, and I think I still might use that because I do quite like that sentiment. Having just a card that just says thanks on it is quite good in the fact that, you know, you don't always need a birthday card, but sometimes you just want to send a card to somebody just to say that, tell them thank you or you appreciate them. So that's what this is about. So we're going to stamp this up, ink it up, and stamp that directly onto your designer series paper, just a bit above middle. We don't really want to go straight in the middle because we are going to add some baker's twine onto that as yet. And I love those sentiments. They're so fine and delicate. It just looks really good on there. Okay, I'm just going to pop my lid on my glue so it doesn't dry out, and I grab my snail. So what I'm going to do here is just put a little bit of snail in the back here. Now that's just going to be roughly underneath where my thanks is. So there's my thanks, and this is on the lower half of that, because what we're going to do is grab our baker's twine, and I'm just going to push my baker's twine into that adhesive and wrap that around 3 times. Making sure that's nice and straight. And trim that off. Keep that piece because we're going to tie another bow. So there's our piece there. So now we can start putting this card together. So I'm just going to adhere this piece directly onto here. I'm not adding dimensionals under here, but you could if you wanted to, because I'm going to add dimensionals underneath my other piece. And sometimes I just feel like I don't need to have everything all lifted up. So that can go onto there. Grab our dimensionals here. Just need a few dimensional pieces. I'm just using the edges around my dimensional sheet because don't throw any of that away. You can always use it. Add some dimensionals around. And I might just add one in the middle as well, just to give that a little bit extra support there. And this piece is going to go over the top of that where we've cut the piece out of. So it's just giving it that little bit of height, just to add a bit of definition to that piece there. Now I also cut out one of these spray pieces or flourish pieces, and what I'm going to do is just take a section of this, and I'm going to snip this off just about there. So it's just under halfway. That piece I can keep for another card. I'm going to just pop out some of these little bits in here. Okay. Going to pop a little bit of glue just onto that top, just underneath the top of there, and that's going to just tuck in at an angle underneath our twine. Now I've got a little bit of glue oozing out there, but that's okay because I've got one of the leaves that also from a die from the same die set that goes with this particular one, and I've cut this out of gold foil, and I'm going to pop a little bit of glue on the back of that, and that is also going to just lay on top and just tuck underneath. There's still a bit of glue oozing there, but that's fine because what we're going, whoops, wrong lids. Let's try to put the lid of my seal onto my green glue. That's not going to work. Now I've got way too much twine, but that's okay. We want to tie, I just want to rub that a few times just to take out any of those kinks. And I want to tie a nice bow. Going to leave a nice length of tail on there and trim that off. Grab my glue dots again, and then with my take a pick tool, I'm just going to roll that up into a little bit of a sausage or fold it in half. Just so then that can go on there. Put my bow on top of that. That bow is just going to hang on there. So we want that knot of that bow to cover up that glue dot as much as you possibly can. And there's our other card. So there's two cards. The cards that I made, two of the cards I made in my class today. As I said, the third card I did make a few weeks back in one of my lives. So I hope you've enjoyed that, and I hope that that inspires you to grab this paper out and create some fun cards using the designer series paper, use them as die cuts, or use them as your card fronts. So thank you very much for joining me today. I hope you've enjoyed that. If you leave me a comment, please share with others. If you're wanting any of these products, you can go online at butterfliesandbows.com and you'll find a link there to my store, or you could go to Michele Trissa at micheletrissa.stampinup.net, and that will also take you to my online store where you can purchase all these products yourself. So thank you very much for joining me today. If you have any questions, please leave it in the comments and I will get back to you in the next couple of days. Thank you, Robbie. Thank you for joining us. I'm glad you enjoyed those cards. So take care. Have a lovely, lovely weekend. I'm going to go and ring my family now and thank them for their birthday wishes and catch up with you later on. Take care. Bye for now.